Chapter 7. Non-Cooperation and the Cloth Campaign. More than 500,000 Indians fought for Britain in the First World War between 1914 and 1918. So when the war ended, there was a strong feeling that Britain should give India something back. During the war, Edwin Montagu, the Secretary of State for India, had said that there would be a move towards responsible government in India as a part of the British Empire, which people believed meant that India would begin to rule herself. But in March 1919, a new law, the Rowlatt Act, was passed in India. Under the new law, Indians could be arrested without trial for sedition, trying to make other people act against the government. Any Indian who was caught carrying a seditious paper had to go to prison for 2 years. The Indian people were furious. They had fought for Britain in the war, and they had hoped that they would soon rule their own country. But they were given the Rowlatt Act, not self-government. Gandhi decided that India should have a hartal. Everything should shut down. On the 30th of March in Delhi, and a week later in other cities, shops stayed closed and no one went to work. Everyone followed the hartal, and in cities and villages all over India, crowds of thousands of people demonstrated against the Rowlatt Act. In most parts of India, the demonstrations were peaceful, but there was some violence and fighting, and Gandhi was very upset when he heard this. The 13th of April 1919 was a terrible day in the history of British rule in India. 2 days earlier, a new British Army leader, General Dyer, had arrived in Amritsar in the Punjab. He said that he would not allow public meetings because he was worried about violence. But many people in the city did not know he had said this, and on the 13th of April, more than 10,000 Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs met at Jallianwala Bagh. Jallianwala Bagh was a place with walls around it where public meetings were often held. The meeting had only just started when General Dyer arrived with his soldiers. They stood at the entrance to Jallianwala Bagh so that people could not escape and began shooting. More than 300 people were killed and more than 1,000 were injured. At first, the British did not let Gandhi go to the Punjab after the shootings in Amritsar. But in October 1919, he was allowed to travel there to help organize an investigation into the shootings. When he arrived in Lahore, the railway station was full of people who had come to see him. They felt that he was the only person who could help them fight against the British. Because of the Rowlatt Act and the Amritsar shootings, more and more people wanted India to move towards self-government. There were other reasons why Indian people were angry with the British government. The war had made prices in India very high, and many people could not afford to eat properly. There was also anger among Indian Muslims because Britain and her allies had taken away the power of their religious leader, the Caliph. Gandhi now introduced the idea of non-cooperation, refusing to help or work with the British government. He told the British Viceroy that from the 1st of August 1920, Indians would stop buying British cloth, going to British schools and courts, and working for the British government. The non-cooperation campaign was followed across the country. Lawyers stopped working in the courts, and people refused to vote in local elections. Teachers and students left the cities and went to teach reading, writing, and non-cooperation in the villages. People also stopped drinking alcohol, which was taxed heavily, and therefore brought the British government money. Gandhi travelled around the country, speaking at meetings where often more than 100,000 people came to hear him. At these meetings, he asked Indians to stop wearing foreign clothes and told them they should learn to spin and weave to make their own cloth. People then took off their foreign clothes, and Gandhi collected them at the front and burnt them. Gandhi began spinning himself for half an hour every day, and he later dressed only in a loincloth, a piece of cloth around his middle. As a result of the cloth campaign, hundreds of thousands of Indians began wearing khadi, homespun cloth. In 1920, Gandhi began working closely with the Indian National Congress, and at their meeting in December, he helped to change the party into a big organization with representatives in every city and village. A new flag was designed for the party with a picture of the charkha, or spinning wheel, on it. Before 1920, the Congress had been ruled by important rich men, but at the December meeting there were many poor people, and the most important speakers were middle-class Indians like Gandhi. At this meeting, Gandhi promised that if India followed peaceful non-cooperation, it would have self-rule in less than a year. As well as travelling around the country in hot, uncomfortable trains, Gandhi wrote many articles for Young India and Navajivan, his two weekly publications. Crowds wanted to see him day and night, and to give himself some peace, he began to have a weekly day of silence, which he continued for the rest of his life. He only spoke on a Monday if something very important happened. After a year of non-cooperation, the Congress had 6 million new members, and Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs were working and living together more peacefully than ever before. But there was still no self-rule for India, and the British now began to arrest political leaders and those who followed them. By January 1922, 30,000 Indians had been arrested, and many were treated very badly and hit. Many Indians wanted to fight against the British, but Gandhi still believed that non-violence was the only way forward for India. The Congress had agreed to begin a campaign of civil disobedience. People in one part of the country, the area of Bardoli, would all refuse to pay taxes. But in February 1922, there was violence in the small town of Chori Chora, where a crowd of demonstrators killed 22 policemen. Gandhi was deeply upset by the news, and he decided to cancel the civil disobedience campaign. Many people were disappointed about this and thought that it was the wrong decision. But Gandhi was worried that he would not be able to control the campaign, and he could not allow violence. At this time, British leaders in India began to call for Gandhi's arrest. Lord Reading, the new viceroy, liked Gandhi and did not want to put him into prison. But most of the British government in India felt that Gandhi was too dangerous, and on Friday the 10th of March 1922, he was arrested and taken to Sabarmati prison. A week later he was brought to court and charged with writing 3 seditious articles in Young India. Gandhi told the judge that the charge was completely fair and that he should receive the hardest penalty. The judge told Gandhi that he would go to prison for 6 years. When Gandhi was taken away from the courtroom, people fell at his feet, many of them crying. But Gandhi walked away smiling. He had always said that going to prison was an important part of non-cooperation. It was only in prison, he believed, that freedom could be won.